We are live now, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Midlife Committee of Obstetrics and Gynecological Society of Southern India, we cordially invite all of you for this webinar on midlife crisis and mental health and weight gain. This midlife is always a challenging phase of our life. We all think when we are young, we are very happy. And when we are old, we will be very, very happy. But we have to pass through this midlife and its challenges in all aspects. I invite our OGSSI President, Dr. Jairani Kamraj Madam, to give the welcome address. Dr. Jairani Kamraj is a very senior consultant in the city, and Madam is a very dynamic and versatile president of our society. She has got a lot of awards to her credit, and Madam is very cherubic and always fun-loving. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Karpaga. Anevarkum vanakkam. Good afternoon, dear friends. It gives me a great pleasure and honor. And on behalf of my energetic OGSSI 23 team, I welcome you one and all for this wonderful webinar organized by my Midlife Committee. As rightly pointed out by Karpaga, that the women go through a lot of phases in the life, and this phase is very important because this is the phase that most women go through a lot of biological, lot of social, as well as lot of physical, lot of changes happens in her. And of course, she goes through a lot of stress related to the work, career, family, and to balance her life, it makes a lot of, it needs a lot of inputs. And as a gynecologist, we ourselves, being a woman in the middle age, when you have a career, we have a goal, we have a family, it is a lot of things which happens both with the physics as well as the mind and the body. So we need a lot of things to update about our health, which is both physical and mental. And I really appreciate Karpaga and Deepa for making this important topic of this mental and the health of all these things of the midlife. And I'm very appreciating them to look into all these categories of catering the psychologists and the all these senior faculties here. And it gives me a great pleasure to welcome our OGSSI Midlife Committee Chairperson, Dr. Shaijas, who will be talking on a very important topic of obesity in the midlife, which is really a troublesome one for most of the women, with all the difficulties they go through to curtail their weight and to balance the weight and to maintain the BMI, which induces a lot of changes in their physical and their health. That is a very important topic that he'll be discussing. And I welcome you, Shaijas, for this webinar. And I have a great privilege and honor to welcome the senior faculties, Dr. Indra, Dr. Sashireka, and Mrs. Vasanti, who will be talking on a lot of aspects on all this midlife. I welcome you, all the senior faculties here and all the senior OGSSIans, and also all the fellow friends of mine and my team, EC members, for this webinar. And I wish everything will go on a very beautiful way, which will be giving a good knowledge sharing about the women's midlife to all the delegates here. Over to Karpaga. I welcome you and wish you best of luck for all this webinar. Over to you.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you so much, because it really, all of us are sailing in the same boat. So, but you know, the degree of problems can vary from one person to other person. But ultimately, we all want to be mentally and physically strong, take care of our family, friends, and ourselves also. Sahiti, next is the Tamitai Valthu. Thank you, Sahiti. Next is the lighting of Kuttuvelakku. Thank you so much, Sahiti. It's always nice to start off our programs with this Tamitai Varthu and lighting of the Kuttuvalakku. And the most dear prayer for us is the Oxy prayer, which we all endure so much because it's so heartening to keep listening to it again and again. And unfortunately, our secretary madam, Kundivi madam, is unable to join because of she's held up in the hospital. I will read the Oxy prayer. Thank you, God. In humility, we gather. In gratitude, we pray for all the good things you have given us. Shower us with your blessings to pass on the healing touch, to celebrate the arrival of each new life and a mom reborn. The courage to deal with it all when things are not perfect, and to remember that we are but messengers to keep our women safe and free from sorrow. We bow before your kindness and the magnanimity of your endless love. Thank you. Now we go on to the sessions, main scientific session. All the topics that we have chosen are very important for our day-to-day life because every day we have lots of ups and downs coming up in our lives. Now I request the chairperson, Dr. Indra and Dr. Shanti to chair the session. Dr. Indra is a very good friend of mine. She heads the Department of Teaching and Obstetrics and Gynecology at Public Health Center, which is a very renowned DNB center, National Board Center, which is located in West Mambalam, Chennai. Her areas of interest is high-risk pregnancy, and Madam is a very, very down-to-earth person and excellent teacher. And next is Dr. Shanti. Shanti is from my college and she's very close to me. She is now the professor, Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Savita Medical College and Hospital. And Shanti has a vast experience with a lot of papers she has published, and her field of interest is endoscopy, high-risk pregnancy, and adolescent gynecology. Welcome, Dr. Indra and Dr. Shanti, for accepting to chair our sessions.
Thank you, Karpaham.
You're welcome, ma'am. And now I request Dr. Sasireka Kumaran. She is the director of Jeevan Women Care Clinic. She has 18 years of experience in this field, and she's practicing reproductive medicine for the past 5 years. And she believes in holistic women care and women empowerment. I'm sure, Sasireka, the topic is well aptly suited for you because I always wonder, what is this midlife crisis? My mother never talked about it. My party never talked about it. But why are we talking about it? So my question to Dr. Sasireka is, midlife crisis, does it really exist? And how are we going to deal with it? Over to you, Sasireka.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizing team, Midlife Committee, Jairani Madam, and my good friend, Dr. Kapagam, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this program today. Lately, we hear a lot of celebrity couples breaking their long-term relationships and buying fancy things. Is it all because of midlife crisis? Does it really exist? Let's see. As we age and look back into the early days, perhaps fondly with sense of relief and regret, we realize that our better days are gone and we are left with nothing forward except unfulfilled days and a purposeless life. So as we hit this existential concern, we wonder, are we getting into this dreadful midlife crisis? What is midlife? Midlife is halfway in our life, like pivot point. A hill has been climbed, and the view on the other side remains unsettling. Victor Hugo said, 40 is the old age of youth, and 50 is the youth of old age. The concepts of middle age are elastic, and it wiggles between 30 and 60 in different population surveys. The midlife decline in life satisfaction is, of course, real, and our attention shifts from past to time left and requires adjustment. We have many imaginations about how to enjoy a relaxed midlife, but what is real? So the adults in midlife are confronted with a tough task of prioritizing their money and time for themselves, their parents, and children. In addition, they undergo a lot of physical changes like weight gain, grain, skin changes, and there's a decline in the hormones and sexual drive too. There's a big squeeze, a generational sandwiching between your aging parents and your growing children. You need to really parent your aged adults and your growing children too. And there's a lot of financial strain, commitments, and job stresses also. If you are married at an younger age, your children are grown up now and they are moving out for education or employment, and you feel so lonely and restless, and you need to refocus your parenting and think about yourself. Middle age may be just a passing stream for some or a period of crisis and despondency. Now, what is midlife crisis? A period of soul searching, which is relatively common, but about 10 to 20% of adults face this dreadful midlife crisis. This is a cultural concept, a Western myth fueled by media, but it is actually coined by a psychoanalyst, Elliot Jakes, in 1960s. He reflected the dawning recognition of one's own mortality. Death, which is a universal phenomenon, is considered more of a personal thing. He examined the career of a number of artists and creative geniuses, and he noticed there is an abrupt change in lifestyle and decline in productivity around the age of 35. So this could be because of midlife crisis. Next, please. Yeah. So what are the signs of midlife crisis? When an adult of middle age has a feeling of sadness or lack of confidence, especially after big accomplishments where we should be actually excited, but then gets bored, feels unfulfilled, have feeling of nostalgia and excessively thinking of past. There's no loss of meaning or purpose in life. There is a feeling of regret and makes impulsive actions. There is also a change in sleep habits, such as sleeping less or more or reduced quality of sleep, and pay less attention to your appearance and personal hygiene. Probably the midlife crisis is knocking your door. There are multiple stages described in different surveys, but commonly we refer to 6 stages, and they are the denial, anger, replay, depression, withdrawal, and acceptance. Denial is noticed at the first stage, that is at the beginning of the midlife crisis, where the adult denies or refuses and argues about getting older. Next slide. Both men and women are affected by this midlife crisis. It lasts for about 2 to 5 years in women and 3 to 10 years in men. Next. So the emotional crisis faced during the midlife crisis is nothing different from any other crisis at any other point of time. So there are some triggering factors for this crisis too. Aging itself, or aging in combination with changes, problems, or regret over work or career, job loss, health concerns, a parent's death or illness, and children moving out possibly precipitate a crisis called midlife crisis. So how will you confirm this midlife crisis? It's not an official diagnosis. It's mostly diagnosed with self-answered questionnaires, so researchers find great difficulty. It's rather difficult to investigate what causes increased anxiety, stress, or depression noticed during this midlife crisis. It's not a mental disorder, but rather an adjustment disorder. And we need to be really wise to differentiate from other organic issues like depression and early onset dementia. Middle-aged adults commonly face depression. The depression noticed in midlife can cause midlife crisis, or the midlife crisis itself can cause depression. What causes what is, we are not very sure. And a small percentage of adults also have early onset dementia where there is a change in personality or character, and they have difficulty in planning and organizing things. Now, we have to differentiate this from midlife crisis actually. So when should you get help? If you have an emotional distress that impairs your sleep or affects your appetite, you cannot concentrate at work or look fit because of distress, you've lost interest in leisure activities and hobbies, your stress or mood is really taking a toll on your relationship. If you're thinking of making major life changes like ending a long-term relationship, switching careers, relocating because of inner turmoil related to midlife, please seek help. Next, please. So in midlife, there is a shift in the change in personality and priorities. It could be a normal part of aging for some, and it could be rather a crisis for many. There are different schools of thought on this. The idea that midlife crisis is inevitable soon jumps from this academic paper to popular culture. According to Barbara, midlife crisis is just a normal aspect of growth, natural for 40s, just exceeding for the younger ones. And for Carl Jung, midlife is a time when previously suppressed aspects of psyche become integrated. And Susan Cross says it's a unicorn, a mythological creature in psychological concept. And there's no evidence to confirm age is related to changes in personality. And there are many statistical papers which show the U curve of happiness. So people start life optimistically, but then there's a dip in the happiness when they enter into adulthood, and again the happiness bounces back when they reach the late adulthood. But there's an exception with everything. So people who have a purpose in life, that is when they get up in the morning, they have a meaningful list of work to do, they have meaningful relationships or activities, they live happier and they have a higher U curve of happiness. People can go through a lot of questioning and challenging at any point in adulthood, and it could be triggered by who knows what. Next, please. On the positive note, midlife turmoil may bring about positive changes that actually don't require professional help. They become more spiritual and volunteer. A 2016 study published in International Journal of Behavioral Development shows about the curiosity during this crisis, and they are curious about themselves and about the wider world around them, and this creates new ideas and creative solutions, a silver lining in the midst of a crisis. So the people who face midlife crisis become self-critical, self-confident, less neurotic, and responsible. The more they experience such episodes, they become more empathetic towards others. Next. So, leaving behind everything, supposing you're likely to hit midlife crisis, what should you do? To talk to someone you trust, reframe your situation, set new goals, make a bucket list of vacation places and new hobbies. Next. If you suspect a friend or a family member experiencing midlife crisis, what should you do? You be a good listener, non-judgmentally, without giving advice at the beginning itself. Express your concern and avoid facts like you are likely to have midlife crisis. Instead, say something like, you don't feel like yourself lately. Are you okay? Talk about the importance of getting help, because midlife crisis should be differentiated from many other medical disorders. And if you are not cooperative, you can get help yourself. Talk to a mental health professional. Devise a plan to help your loved one, but then you put a healthy boundary and protect yourself too. That's very important. Next thing. The The term midlife crisis is not only fictional, but putting a label on such things is reductive and harmful to overall mental health. People having a purpose in life is like having a magical bullet pushes them forward. You can try reconnecting with old friends, make new friends and hobbies. Ultimately, knowing you're not having a midlife crisis itself makes you feel better. Next, midlife crisis is a social concept, a psychological belief. For some, it's a normal part of aging, but for others, it could be a dreadful crisis. Seek professional help whenever needed. Believe that this too shall happen. Age is merely a number. Let's maintain youth in our thoughts and actions. It's after only one lifetime. Let's live it to the fullest. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Shashireka. Indra Madam and Shanti, would you like to give your opinion?
Yeah. At the outset, I would like to thank the Midlife Committee, especially thank my senior Dr. Kalpagamba for giving me the opportunity.
Shanti, voice is breaking, ma.
Hello, am
No,
I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Sasireka, it was a very good presentation. You very well started with first definition, what is midlife? Then you took us through what is midlife crisis, what is definition, the basic definition. Like you very well brought up that it is present, it is seen in around 10 to 20% of the population. So maybe that is the answer for the question like Karpagambal asked, like her party did not talk about this and your mother did not talk about that. Maybe one more reason is that they were able to tide over the crisis. So as you rightly said, the most important thing is the self-help and the greatest help from friends. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indra ma'am?
Yeah, actually, that's a very, very crisp and wonderful presentation. We are all gone through that phase without knowing we are going through the phase. After seeing this lecture only, I was thinking, okay, that would have been happened to us like that. Okay. But anyway, that's a very, very, very informative, and we know at least what is this crisis is about and how to help people when you find somebody with that thing. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Shashireka. It's a nice presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Vasanthi ma'am to talk about the most important aspect, which is mental health. I know all of us are definitely having lots of ups and downs, mood swings, whatever you call, anxiety, depression. These things keep coming up on and off in our lives. And especially when we are passing through a kind of turmoil in our personal lives and professional lives also, this mental health is always at stake. So that is the first thing that to have a hit, actually. I know all of us seem very physically very strong, but I think physical strength and mental strength are complementary to each other. I think it's very important for us to take care of our mind also as we take care of our physical health too. Ma'am, Vasanthi ma'am is a very good friend, and madam is a trained counselor. She has counseled actually quite a lot of young girls, college students. She has made them overcome a lot of difficulties, and she is a counselor for student counselor at Anna University, and she delivers lectures in various places and helps children cope with very important tragic events in their life. So we actually have spent quite a few girls who have had post-traumatic stress disorder and had a lot of issues, and madam has dealt with them quite well, and I'm always grateful to her for being there with me. Whenever I need help, she is there. Over to you, ma'am. Vasanthi ma'am. Vasanthi ma'am. Vasanthi ma'am, can you hear me?
Vasanthi
ma'am?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes.
Can it start now?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity, Dr. Kapamal. It's been a great pleasure to have be a part of a nice set of young doctors and beautiful doctors in the in Chennai. Okay, so I would like to, because doctor have covered everything. Whatever I want to say, she has covered everything actually. Not only the physical, the both the mental health also. Can you able to hear me, ma'am?
Yes, yes. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
yeah. Okay. So now we are going to talk about our mental health, because which one is most important when we are reaching the mid-age, definitely we have to take care of your physical as well as the mental health more properly. Okay. Simultaneously, we have to take care of both. But we know we have to take care of everything. About physical fitness, we are going for the gym, taking care of everything, the parlor and everything. And for if you have any physical inability also, we are ready to go and meet the doctors. But when it comes to the mental health, nobody wants to go and meet a counselor or psychiatrist. That is still a boon in our society. I don't know why that is happening. The only one thing I would like to put forward, so we have to take care of your physical as well as mental health simultaneously. That both are most important. When we are going to reach out that mid-age, definitely we are going to have some physical problem, definitely. Then out will also, because we are going to get graying, and we are going to put on weight, and a lot of financial pressures at home. But we don't know how to deal with the teenage girl or boy at home, because we all born and brought up in a different kind of scenario setup. Okay, so now all the families has been changed into a nuclear family, especially the children nowadays. The adolescent children, they need more, because they are I'm very sorry to say that they need our love and affection more than for the money, facility, whatever we are going to give. So we have, because in that age, middle age, simultaneously, I have to concentrate on I have to divide it into three. One is the personal well-being. Definitely, we have to take care of ourselves, because we are always, especially when it comes to the mother, and especially comes to the working mother, we are always keen on to taking care of our family, our children, and our work. But we don't have time to take care of ourselves. Even though we have time, obviously we have to spend time for your family. Either one for elders or for the younger children. So the first important thing is we have to take care of ourselves. We too need a break. We too need some kind of some kind of things which will make us happy. As doctor said, we have to go and meet our friends. At least just go for a walking, some kind of exercises, and listening to music, and just watch few kind of short series. But everybody is busy. I know as a woman, we have to work from home as well as when going for the work. We have more responsibility. I'm not saying the men are not their responsibility, but women, we have more work to do. So that time we have to balance between our work as well as our personal life. So the personal thing first, we have to take care of ourselves. Are we okay? We have to ask the question to ourselves. Are you happy inside? That is the more important thing we have like to say. So the third thing, most important thing, do you think that your family has a nice positive vibration at home? So we have everything. We have car, we have maids, we have AC, we have everything at home. Do we have a peace at home? So we need to find out. So once we are entering into the house, just leave all the stress we have at the work or outside. We have to make ourselves free and face the children. So when the mid-age comes, definitely we are going to have more responsibility, and then more kind of physical illness and more stresses also. Then second important thing is the financial crisis, financial burden will arise, because when we are below 12 or 16, our parents will take care of the financial things. When we are getting into the marriage, definitely the husband or the family member is going to take care of it. When we are coming into the midlife, definitely our children are grown up. We are going to take care of our parents and the in-laws also. So that comes a financial crisis also. So the physical illness and then the financial crisis and the mental being definitely going to give more stress for us. So how are we going to balance the personal, physical, psychological, and financial crisis? If you are ready in mind, if you are really fit in your mental health, definitely it's very easy for you to take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your work, as well as take care of the financial crisis, whatever the problem it comes. So we need to balance between these things. So the first thing about ourselves that we spoke about a lot. Doctor also have so many points. She has shared so many points. So we have to follow it. We know there are the points are available, but are we following it? That is the one point. Then comes to the family. Definitely, we have some elders at home and we have the younger generation also at home. So we have to balance between the elders and the younger generation. So especially when our children, they are in the adolescent age, it's really a task for us. So what we born and brought up totally different from what the children are now. They are they are exposed to so many things. See, everything is available in the mobile phone. Because in the mobile phone is a blessing as well as the very bad thing for our society, especially for the youngsters. They're spoiling the study time and they're spoiling their happiness, it's spoiling their sleep and spoiling everything. So how are we going to teach our children? This is when you go, because when we are in the counseling session, we are meeting the students, all the parents are more stressed than the students. They are more anxious. They are more worried about the children's future, but they don't know how to convince it, how to make them understand. I'm not blaming the parents, I'm not blaming the students also. That's why this kind of psychological and support has been increased now. Because if you have somebody to open up, when we are in the middle age, definitely we have some pressures in our body, in our mind. So how are we going to make it all right? If it's easy for you to make it, well and good. If you need any support, if you have any support at home, any friend, aunt, or any mentor, if anybody is there, just go and talk to them, open them. Don't bottle up your problem. You have to trust somebody and you have to open up the problem. Then only you can have the solution for the problem, how to solve it. If not, if you don't have anybody else at home or neighbor, better you go and meet a counselor, meet a psychiatrist. So now still, because it's actually nowadays, it's very happy to go and meet a doctor if you have any physical issues. But they are really very, still there's a boon here. They don't want to go and meet a psychiatrist. Why have to go and talk to a counselor or psychiatrist? Better just, they are only the listener. They are not going to any give advice. If you go and open up to a person, one who has a psychological background, she understands your problem, or she or he, then they make us to understand how to come out of. They are not going to give advice. They are not going to show any way. So just opening the problem with somebody else, definitely you are going to get the solution for that problem. You need someone to open up. In olden days, we have a joint family. If a wedding also, it will happen for 7 days. A death also, it will happen for 3 or 4 days. But nowadays, everything is in online. We don't know who is staying next door. We don't know about the names, nothing so on. So we are in a nuclear set of life we are having. Just you have to break it. Just make friends, talk to your old friends, find time for yourself, and you should have a hobby. So you should have yourself happy. So if you're happy, really you are fit to solve all the problems. Either it's going to be a physical problem, it's going to be a psychological problem, it's going to be a financial problem. Definitely you are going to face it, you are going to overcome it, you are going to succeed it. If you're really weak, little bit weak mentally upset, depressed, you don't know how to, you will have a blurred vision. You don't know how to face the problem and how to overcome it. That is the issue. So better make time for yourself. I know we are all busy, especially when it comes to the midday. we have more responsibility. So I know. So as you said to the students, we have to allot time for, we should have a timetable. It's not easy for everybody else. Better you spend some time with your friends, some time with your husband or wife, and some time with your children, some time for yourself. That gives actually that's overhauling your body, overhauling your mind and everything. You will get refreshed. These kind of refresh therapies you need. If you have a 1 or 2 refresh therapy at home with you, definitely we are going to overcome all the crises. We are going to face it. We are going to take care of your, elders, our father-in-law or our father, and it's easy for us to take care of your children when they are coming for the adolescent, the career development, and the wedding. Also, we have the time. We have to listen to them. Just nowadays, when we don't have that. I'm not blaming the mid-age. Actually, we have some issues in physical that definitely affect the mental health also. So we have to be like everybody is saying, we have to do some meditation and some yoga that will help you. Your mind and body will get refreshed. So doing the meditation is nothing but just sit in a place and calm up your mind and listen to some music, read some books, and just pray to God. So make up your mind. And the physical exercise like yoga, some small walk also make our body fit. The meditation will make our mind fit. So if really we are fit in our mind, if really we are physically and mentally fit, definitely we are going to come over the problem, whatever it comes, especially in the mid-age. So we have to be double strong. So we have a lot of therapy. It's with you. You are responsible for your happiness. Don't blame on anybody else. Don't blame on the society. Don't blame on the family. If you want to be okay, definitely you are going to be okay. So be strong, be confident, face it. Definitely we are going to win it. If really you seek any help, there are a lot of counselors and psychiatrists available. So just go to them and talk to them. Feel free and get refreshed and come and have your life positively, happily, and all the very best. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks you, doctor. Thank you. Nice talking to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vasanthi ma'am. It was really enlightening because we always put mental health as the last one to be taken care of.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, thank you so much. Please stay back. We'll have a small interaction after that.
Sure.
Dr. Shaijas is back after an emergency.
Yeah.
Now, I request Dr. Shaijas. Shaijas is our chairperson of Midlife Management Committee. And I was wondering what topic to give him. But when I saw him and got to know about him, I thought this is the best topic and he would do the best justice to this topic of middle-age spread. We're always worried about this middle-age spread because we always think that, pregnancy puts on weight, lactation puts on weight. And after the age of 30, 35, there is definitely a middle-age spread. But I know I always tell my patients, none of us look the same in our marriage photo and Arvidan Kalyana photo, 60th wedding day photo. We look very different because whether they men or women, everybody seems to put on weight. So we know that there's a decline in basal metabolic rate as we grow older. And now Dr. Shaijas is going to tell us about middle-age spread. I know it's okay to have some kind of middle-age spread, but how to maintain fitness in spite of the middle-age spread. Over to you, Dr. Shaijas.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I hope I can share my screen also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible.
Welcome, Shaijas.
Hello, madam. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I hope my slides are visible too.
Yeah.
First of all, a big thanks to OGSSI, headed by some very, very lovely people. Jairani madam, whom I know for really long. Dr. Kundavi is there, who's the Honorable Secretary of OGSSI. and the fellow chairpersons and faculties, Dr. Indira, Dr. Shanti, Dr. Shashireka, Dr. Vasanti, whom I was just listening to, Dr. Karpagambal, as well as Dr. Deepa. Such a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure. OGSSI, that society, I think, holds a very, very special place. I remember probably one of my earliest certificates after I became, when I was a PG at JIPMA, one of my earliest certificates in hand was from OGSSI. So it always would hold a very, very special place in my heart. I remember I had come from Pondicherry to Chennai to participate in a quiz competition which was conducted by OGSSI at that point of time. I remember Dr. Hepzibah and a lot more other people were there at the hem of FS. So it's such a pleasure to be back now with representing the Midlife Management Committee of OGSSI. This, as we all know, is the present team with the vibrant president in Dr. Rishikesh Pai with this Badlav initiative, the key points of which you can see around me about Takniki, Ekikaran and Samanta. And the Badlav Yatra that he did was a big success. We are trying to bring about a change, which is called Badlav, and represented by Dr. Madhuri Patel as well as Dr. Yashodhara Pradeep. So such a pleasure to represent this committee. And I also bring greetings from the Kannur Obstetric and Gynecological Society, a group of almost 130 very vibrant members who are working in and out both on the academic and the non-academic front to make a difference. It's a wonderful topic, something which is very, very close to my heart. I think we are always in this journey. I would call, in fact, a battle to actually prevent a weight gain in midlife. So as it's so beautifully penned down by whoever created this topic on middle age spread, I think on a lighter vein, I would say it is in middle age, we would love to spread as far as socially, the social aspect of it is concerned, but we are always concerned about the physical spread that happens in midlife. And that is what we are trying to avoid, isn't it? So let us talk a little bit of that. So there's a very valid question that often gets asked by women who come to my clinic and probably to your clinics too. And there's an even more valid answer to that. And that question is this, that the woman would come and tell you that nothing has changed and I haven't changed anything and I'm gaining weight. She means that she's probably eating the same kind of food. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of weight that is being put on. And my obvious answer to that would be, you are only gaining weight because you haven't changed anything. And that is why there need to be a lot of changes that need to be instilled, both in your diet, as well as your exercise pattern as you reach midlife. Otherwise, you are destined to put on weight. So weight gain in midlife should not come as a surprise because there are a lot of scientific basis to that. So one thing that we all need to understand and what we need to talk to ourselves as well as our patient is that weight gain in midlife is real. If you're talking about women, they gain an average of around 1.5 pounds, that is almost 0.7 kilogram per year. And we always tend to blame someone else, and midlife women generally blame it all on the hormones. But there are a lot of studies that tell us that in most women, hormones aren't the factor which really need to be blamed for weight gain in midlife. There is a reduction in muscle mass, and we are talking a whole lot about sarcopenia these days, not just about osteopenia. And the decrease in muscle mass would mean that the body is able to burn fewer calories, both during phases of rest as well as activity. There is definitely a decrease in physical activity, which you would all agree, though we are straining a lot more mentally because we are talking about mental health and mental wellness. But definitely there is a reduction in physical activity for most men and women as they reach midlife. And obviously, we are attending a whole lot of social events. This is what I was talking about the social spread that happens in midlife. And with a conference happening on every weekend, and you're telling somebody to diet, especially a gynecologist, I think it's a hard task, isn't it? So we need to really take care of what we are eating. A loss of estrogen obviously is there, which can cause a lot of fat getting accumulated in their belly. Even when women who don't actually gain weight can still have an increase in belly fat. And that's why we are always concerned. So that's why when I tell about focus on midlife, you also need to primarily focus on the middle part of your body also, isn't it? Because that's where all the gain happens, unfortunately. If you look at the data from around the world, you would understand that almost 65% of women between the ages of 40 and 65 are obese. And that percentage increases to 75% when you're talking about 65 plus women. So just remember. So by default, we are expected to be obese, is what I was telling. Okay, that means when a lady comes and tells you that I haven't changed anything, but I'm gaining weight, the valid answer to that would be you're only gaining weight because you haven't changed anything. Okay, very similar to that very frequent question that people ask whether does diabetes run in the family? And my interesting answer to that is diabetes happens in the family because nobody runs in the family, right? So these are the kind of things, I think, some statements which actually tell a whole lot more than what we actually say. So the contents of today's lecture would be, we're looking at various kinds of diet because there are n number of diets available. If you search Google, I think you'll totally get confused. We are looking at which is the best of the lot for achieving weight loss, which is the best maintenance diet, which is obviously a very valid question, and what should be the components of a comprehensive exercise pattern in midlife. This is a typical woman in midlife, isn't it? I think you will not have to search much. You just have to look at the mirror and you'll find her, right? Right? Yes. So she's balancing all aspects of life as a mother, as a daughter-in-law, as a wife, teacher, finance manager. And I would say, irrespective of whether she's working or not, she's a major head of the household. Irrespective of whether you're religious or not, I think the closest resemblance is to this. Lord Durga, isn't it? Okay. And I think all of you need to be really proud if you're a woman. And if you're a man, I think you really need to start appreciating the kind of roles that a woman fits into. It's said that on an average, people tend to fit into almost 6 to 8 roles in life. And that's really some amount of multitasking, if you can call it that way. So I think it's high time that women appreciate their ability to fit into multiple roles. And men start realizing that a little bit more, and they also start doing a little bit more multitasking than they are actually doing right at this point of time. So as we go on, we understand that a typical midlife person is actually stuck amongst lot of stressors, I would say. And a lot of talk has already happened related to mental health, so I would not elaborate much on that. But we always need to think of changing family relationships, a balancing act that we try to do between your work and your personal life. At the same time, he or she has to rediscover himself or herself. She always has to think of securing enough amount of resources to ensure that her life goes on well. And obviously the multiple co-occurring stressing factors. Now, whenever we talk about better health in midlife, there are 2 key questions that we need to ask ourselves. One is, what do you eat and how physically active you are? And these 2 questions, if you are answering them well, I think we have the answer to the problem that we are facing. There are various forms of diet that is available in the market. Something which came with a bang and has probably gone into disrepute is the keto diet. We'll talk a little bit more on that. One is a balanced diet, the so-called balanced diet. We call it by a relatively fancy term called Mediterranean diet these days. Okay, it's about having enough amount of carbohydrates, proteins, as well as fat, everything in balance in the diet. And then we have the age-old custom of restricting the amount of calories. We can call it a calorie-restricted diet. So we have a keto diet, a balanced diet, otherwise known as a Mediterranean diet, and then we have a calorie-restricted diet. There'll be a lot more names if you search Google, but primarily many of them will fit into any of these 3. And the other things which are appearing too innovative, I think can be disregarded because they only appear fancy. And there are not many studies which actually can substantiate and their effectiveness in controlling weight gain in midlife. So let's actually concentrate on these 3. Calorie restriction is one of my favorites, basically, I would say, because the role of that has been unequivocally proved. If you look at the obesity guidelines that have been given by the American College of Cardiology and the Heart Association, you would say that any man or woman in midlife would probably require, if you can restrict your calorie intake to around 1,500 kilocalories per day, then you are on the right route towards weight loss. Thereby, you achieve a calorie deficit of somewhere 500 to 750 kilocalories per day. That's a deficit that you achieve when you're eating only 1,500 kilocalories per day. So that would help, along with some physical activity, which I would be talking about in the second half of my lecture, would help to achieve a weight loss of around 0.5 to 0.75 kilogram per week. And that will be around 2 to 3 kg per month. And that's perfectly the right rate at which you need to lose weight. And it's very important, because otherwise there's a whole lot of hormonal imbalances that can step in if you actually drastically reduce your weight. So it has to be at the right rate, and the right rate is around 2 to 3 kilogram per month. Intermittent energy restriction, otherwise more popularly called as intermittent fasting, is a very novel strategy of calorie restriction. So primarily we are restricting calories, but that 3 dietary or a 4 diet pattern, we are switching over to an intermittent fasting strategy. And the commonest way in which it is done is we have a 16-hour window where we are fasting, and we are an 8-hour window in which we are taking 2 or 3 meals put together. Okay, so if you ask me personally, I'm actually not a breakfast person. So I generally avoid a breakfast. So I eat my lunch and dinner well, and that will come in an 8-hour window. And then the next 16 hours is without any calorie, any food which is probably contains significant calories. Okay, if you are a breakfast person, then you can actually eat breakfast and lunch and skip your dinner. Okay, and that fasting time of 16 hours would be spent on consuming a whole lot of fluids, especially water, and some low calorie drinks if you actually want to. Otherwise, your diet is primarily concentrated on that 8-hour window. And I would tell you that it actually works very well. There'll obviously be a little bit struggle in the initial period, but slowly your body get used to it, and then it will become a pattern of your life. However, we are still waiting for long-term studies about this intermittent fasting strategy, and probably years later we'll have a better evidence to step in. For the time being, it looks a reasonably good alternative to control your calories. So either if you want to eat, so for women and men who have significant amount of dyspepsia, they cannot actually fast for this long. You can actually switch over to a routine diet, but ensure that you understand the amount of calories in the food that you're eating. Okay, that means if you're taking a cup of tea with sugar and milk, you need to understand that there's almost 110 calories that is actually going in. Okay, so that would be the way to understand a calorie restricted diet. If you're okay with the 16 hours fasting and eating in an 8-hour window, then you can switch over to a intermittent fasting strategy if your body is allowing you to. Fine. Now, this is a very, very beautiful pyramid. And this is about the Mediterranean type of diet. This is a balanced diet. It contains everything. It contains carbohydrates, it contains fats, as well as it contains proteins. The basic way to understand this relatively complex appearing pyramid would be, towards the base of this pyramid, you will have things which you need to do daily and which you need to eat daily. So if you look at the base, you will see all kinds of physical activities, okay, including having dinner together, which is very good for your mental health, as Madam was talking just a few minutes back. At the base of the pyramid, you'll see all those rainbow-colored leaves and vegetables and fruits, which you need to eat on a regular basis, about which we have been talking for years together. There's nothing new about it. And as we go towards the apex of this pyramid, you will find those things which are more rich in calories, and hence you will have to reduce the frequency in which you are eating them. And you will have the highest calorie things which you will have to eat in the less often manner. Okay, which would be the twice a week or maybe once in a week and all that. So at the base, you have things which you need to eat daily. Fine. So Mediterranean diet is basically these. If you just list out whatever is actually given in that pyramid, it will contain all these things. Okay. So there's a lot more that you can read in Google. I'll not try to elaborate a bit too much on that. I just want to give you an overall idea on what a Mediterranean diet is all about. The more finer details you can always get on internet. Now, how much is the evidence on Mediterranean diet, which is a balanced diet? It's been studied in almost 1.5 million healthy adults. One of the largest or the best studied diet, I would say. It reduces the risk of heart disease, reduces the risk of death from heart disease and cancer, reduces incidence of Parkinson's disease. It's good for primary and secondary prevention of chronic diseases. It's been, there's a Mediterranean diet study, which has actually come and told us that it's good for primary prevention of cardiovascular disease. Now, let's get on to the keto diet. Keto diet, as we all know, is a predominantly fat-rich diet and a carbohydrate deficient diet. It's either nil carbohydrates or least amount of carbohydrates. You would say that almost 75% of the calories would come from fat, okay? And then another significant portion would come from proteins, that's around 20%, and only around 5% would come from carbohydrates, okay? Some people totally restrict it, others would try to reduce it as much as possible, okay? That would be the way in which we would go ahead. Fine. Now, the benefits of ketogenic diet are actually pretty good. It's actually very good for achieving an acute weight loss, okay? So because there is a suppression of appetite, there is weight loss, there is lowered blood sugar levels, there is lower cholesterol levels, there is reduced amount of abdominal obesity, about which we are very concerned in midlife, okay? But there are certain risks also, okay? Once you stop keto diet, there is a rebound weight gain. And when you're on a keto diet, there are some very bad headaches that happen and brain fogging, okay, which is actually very discomforting. So to tide over the initial 2 to 3 weeks is going to be really, really tough. Fine. Now, maintaining a weight loss on a ketogenic diet is even more difficult because there's a lot of acute events like acute cardiac events, renal failure, and all have been reported in women and men who have been on ketogenic diet for long. So with the present evidence, I would be able to tell you that it might still be okay for a short period of time to achieve an acute weight loss. But on a long-term basis, it is always better to avoid a keto diet. I hope I am very clear on that, because there are some acute bad events that are probably being reported in men and women who are actually on a ketogenic diet for long. Renal disease, renal stones, heart disease, acute cardiac events, Alzheimer's, all these have been reported in men and women who have been on ketogenic diet for long. Now, what is a healthy diet in midlife? The list is a little bit long. A lot of this is already available. This is more of a Mediterranean type of diet. 60% would come from complex carbohydrates. Fat content should be less than 30%. Protein content around 15 to 20%. They say eating a good breakfast is generally important, but if you're on an intermittent fasting strategy, you can alter that pattern. Around 100 grams of fruits, around 300 grams of vegetables. Always prefer whole fruits, as we have always talked about that all these years. Almost 8 to 10 glasses of water per day, lot of whole grains, mixed proteins, and then obviously a little bit of phytoestrogens for women who are approaching menopause and all that, okay? And limiting the use of oil as far as your cooking pattern is concerned. Now, a very common question that is asked is which oil is the best? Because now we have everything available, isn't it? If you go to a supermarket, I think there's an entire spectrum of oils that is available. So we can choose from rice bran, sephora, sunflower oil, mustard oil, sesame, groundnut, olive oil, and a whole lot of that. Now, what does evidence tell you? Evidence tell you that ideally an oil rich in monounsaturated fatty acid, plus another one which is rich in omega-3 fatty acid is the one that combination is probably the best. And the MUFA-rich ones are rice bran oil, groundnut, and olive. And the omega-3 rich ones are the soybean and the mustard oil. So you can better use a combination of that. Okay, limiting tea and coffee intake is good. Okay, obviously it's going to help you a whole lot in maintaining a good health. So that was about oil and the other drinks that you tend to take. Now, a talk on midlife diet would never be complete without talking a word on phytoestrogens. We know that they are estrogen-like compounds. A lot of it is available in a lot of products. There are 4 categories of estrogenic compounds that we have: isoflavones, stilbene, comistan, lignan, and all that. And that is the list. You can actually have, we need not get into too much of scientific details on that. The primary sources are these basically. There is isoflavones in soybeans and legumes. A lot of the stilbene group is found in grapes and peanuts. Comistans are found in split peas, pinto beans, and lima beans. Though some of these words appear very fancy, but understand that a lot of that is available in the nearest supermarket near your house. Okay, now everything is available, right? The entire market has been, totally spread out. Everything available everywhere. Fine. Okay, so that's about phytoestrogens. Now, I always say what Hippocrates said, let thy food be thy medicine. Okay. And my favorite quote is the one that is coming up now. And that is, eat to fuel your body, and not to feed your emotions. I think if you understand the crux of the matter which is being said in that statement, I think you will always be on a right diet. Okay. That means whenever you're not feeling well mentally, kitchen is the last place to go. Generally, I say that every house has a snack box. So whenever the snack box is getting empty, you understand that somebody is not doing well mentally. Right? So that is something you can always control. Okay. That urge to go to open the fridge and try to pick up that snack box and eat, because just you're not feeling well and you're trying to do something and all to actually make your mind feel good. So eat only to fuel your body. And that's why this 2 diets per day is actually more than enough for the kind of activity that we are all through. And never eat to feed your emotions. Unfortunately, coming on to the physical activity part, the only muscles that are working these days are the one at the fingertips, either on the laptop or on your mobile phones, isn't it? We are at risk of hypertrophy at our fingertips, I feel, because that much is the use of the muscles at the fingertips, okay? And then the other set of muscles are the ones which take the food from the container to your oral cavity, and obviously the ones that would chew, isn't it? Unfortunately, these are the only muscles that are working. And the only weight that we are bearing is our own body weight. If you can agree to that, let's look at what the World Health Organization report of 2014 would tell you. There are 6 million people who die every year of tobacco usage. 3.3 million due to alcohol abuse. And it's not surprising, right? Almost some 9.3 million are dying because of this. Okay. So just look at this and we understand that using tobacco and using alcohol is bad for health. Just look at what the report says beyond this point, and then you'll be surprised. Another 3.3 million die because they are physically inactive, and 1.7 million die because they're eating too much of salt. I mean to say that they are on a faulty diet. So 5 million people are dying every year because they are inactive and they are not eating right. Do we look at a person who's sitting without doing anything as we are looking at a person who's consuming alcohol? Actually, both are killing themselves with what they're doing or what they are not doing, literally. Correct? So this much of life is lost because you're not doing anything. You're not being active and you're not eating right. So I think there's seriously a food for thought. Okay? Fine. Talking about physical activity, a comprehensive exercise program should consist of a few things. Aerobics is something that we all know. Aerobics is very good as far as improvement of your cardiorespiratory performance is concerned. So when you do a brisk walking, then you are helping yourself to improve your cardiorespiratory capacity. So aerobics is actually very important. But unfortunately, most men and women in midlife are only concentrating on this and forgetting the other important aspects of exercise. So if you are actually a fitness enthusiast, you should be talking about and doing certain other things too. And that is about 2 other sets of exercises called, one is endurance training and the other is called resistance or strength training. So understand these 2 terminologies, endurance training and strength training. In very simple words, if you actually take a dumbbell and the kind of activities that we do at home, okay, if you take a 2 kg dumbbell and you're doing a biceps curl, something that we all do, we lift up dumbbells and work on our biceps. If you're taking a 2 kg dumbbell and doing as many repeats as possible till you get fatigued, then you're working on your endurance. Instead of 2 kg dumbbell, if you're taking a 5 kg dumbbell and doing for 8 repeats and then you stop, you're working on your strength. This is the basic difference between endurance and strength training. There are a lot of homemade modifications because we understand that there are a lot of exercises that are being done at home these days. People have gym at home. So there are a few things which are there on the slide. The plank is something which you all know. Everybody is worried about having a flat abdomen like Kareena Kapoor even after delivery. So everybody does a plank now, isn't it? Now you can also look at something called a wall sit. That means you are made to sit as if you are sitting on a chair, but the chair is not there. I think if you have gone through ragging days, then you would understand that your seniors were really worried about your endurance, and that's why they were making you sit like this, isn't it? So all the courtesy and the love towards all those lovely seniors who made us work on our endurance. Fine. So there are a lot of homemade modifications to these endurance and strength training exercises that are there. Okay, you can have a look at that on Google. Then there are a few more headings that you need to work on. One is flexibility, posture, and balance. They're not three English words, but they all mean a lot different from each other as far as a personal trainer is concerned. So go and talk to a trainer about flexibility exercises, go and talk to him about posture maintenance exercises, and go and talk to him about balance exercises. They're all entirely three different sets. And finally, if you work on these three, you are avoiding the most unfortunate event that can happen in the life of a midlife man or a woman, and that is avoidance of a fall. A fall is something which has to be avoided at all cost, because people have sarcopenia, people have osteopenia. So if you fall, you are more likely to break your bone in midlife than otherwise. You'll totally get spread out on bed, I would say, in midlife if you fall. Okay. So ensure that you're working on these headings, because that's so very important. Fine. Now, before I end, how much time to exercise? I think 30 minutes per day is something which we have been telling all our women and telling ourselves, isn't it? But if you remember, if you look at those patients whom we have been telling this, I would say that there are a lot many patients in your clinic who have been walking 30 minutes per day for almost 30 years, but haven't lost a single gram. Am I right? Yeah, if I am right, then I would tell you that you probably are not advising them based on whatever evidence we have. 30 minutes per day, brisk walking can only help to improve your cardiorespiratory endurance. And that, in a way, can reduce the risk of chronic disease. But does that help in weight loss? Absolutely no. You will have to at least do that significant amount of exercises or a brisk walk for almost 60 minutes per day if you want to prevent gaining weight, and almost 90 minutes per day if you really want to achieve weight loss. So walking 30 minutes per day for 30 years and not losing a single gram is perfectly okay, because you've not been advising them properly. Correct? I think if there is one take-home message that has to go from this lecture, I think it has to be this. Okay? For your personal self as well as for your patients. Okay? And walking 90 minutes per day straight away is absolutely impossible. You will definitely have to work on your endurance. Start from 30, slowly improve it to 45, reach 60, reach 75, and then you reach to hit that mark of 90. And then from then on, you're losing weight, because you are in business only then. Otherwise, you're only consoling your heart and your lungs and telling that, don't worry, all is well and I will lose weight one day. And that day might never come. Fine. So how much is the intensity and frequency? People are really worried, isn't it? Because a lot of film stars are dying in the gym. And once you hear a news, I think that's the biggest put-off factor, which prevents a person from getting up in the morning and going to the gym. Why should I do exercise? People are actually, in fact, waiting to hear such news, because then you have a very good reason of not going to the gym. Correct? People are dying while playing badminton. Isn't it? We hear a lot of this. And when it happens to a film star, it is in news for all the reasons. Fine. Now, it's definitely a concern, especially for people who have not been into physical activities in their earlier part of life. We call them the late beginners. And most women and men are late beginners, unless you have been athletically very active during your school and college times. And this warning, as far as the intensity and frequency of exercise is concerned, is primarily for a late beginner, because that is where your heart and lungs are not accustomed to such kind of physical activity. And your personal trainer is one who actually motivates you significantly and then makes you do things which you have not been accustomed to. You are expected to have that slightly increased risk of death. So that is why whenever I do a motivational talk on health and exercise, I will ensure that there is not too much of toxic positivity that is handed over to my audience. You all need to be very, very realistic in this. If you are a late beginner, then you should be slow to start off, and then slowly you should improve the endurance of your heart and your lungs. Attempting to do some magical things just to ensure that your Facebook profile photo the very next week looks better, or your Instagram reel is too much motivating because you have a thinner hip than what you had before, I think that can cost you your life. Okay, so if you are a late beginner, you should be very concerned about this. Okay, fine. Now, there is something by which you can avoid that death that is happening. And that is by looking at something called a maximal heart rate. And that should decide the intensity of the exercise that you're doing. What is maximal heart rate? It's nothing but 220 minus your age in years. If you are 40, 220 minus 40, 220 minus 40 is 180. Okay. Now, 40% of that is around 72. The moment your heart rate crosses 40% of your maximal heart rate, you are in business of weight loss. And as you reach more and more closer, as your heart rate reaches more and more closer towards maximal heart rate, the risk of dying is increased. So when your maximal heart rate is 180, all kinds of physical activity, whatever it is, need to be kept under control. And that is why you should have a fitness band like the one that I'm having now, okay, which should actually have a check on all these things. There is an alarm system that are there in most of the fitness bands that are available now, as well as the smart watches, which will help you control the intensity of the physical activity that you're doing. Okay, so most of the even so intense physical activities would keep your heart rate well within under 120 or 130 range. It generally never crosses. So don't be worried about death with every step that you're taking. It's only for a high intensity activity. Otherwise, you are probably, when you're working out, you're actually reducing the risk of dying. Okay, but ensure that you have a check on this. And especially when you're feeling tired, during a workout, just take a break. Don't try to prove something else to people who are watching you or your followers. Okay, just take a break, relax, get back to normalcy. If you're feeling tired, it's okay to stop and then get back to action again. Okay, now the frequency of activity is not no more 3 days a week and all. It has to be at least 5 to 6 days a week. A Sunday can be taken as a break. Okay, 3 days a week you work. Now, if you have a pedometer or a step counter, 10,000 steps per day is easily achievable, because that will help you burn around 350 to 450 calories. Plus, add on the calorie deficit that you're achieving with your diet, you are on the right track to achieving weight loss. Now, this is not a slide to show off, but this has been a story of almost a 16 kilogram weight loss, because I have tried through all these kinds of diets. And today is a day when I'm probably much more fitter and happier in my 40s than I was in my 30s. Okay, so if this can inspire, then I think the purpose of showing this photo is done. Okay, as I always say, if I can do it, so can you. Fine. Before I end, there is one factor which I'm always talking about. I think people talked a lot about mental health and how to take mental health support and all. And we always talk about that resources or the money factor. There was a very interesting quote that came in Forbes magazine. And it said that always remember that money is not everything in life. How many of you agree to that? You all agree that money is not everything in life, but I don't, okay? I don't agree, because you should read actually the tagline which came after this. And the tagline was, make sure you earn enough before you think of such nonsense. Because if there is one single factor which has actually decided happiness in midlife, it has been about securing enough resources. It's not about being filthy rich, but it's about being rich enough to ensure that you take care of your day-to-day expenses and you have sufficient resources in store to take care of your future. Okay, so that's why we always talk about a health insurance. Always talk about a life insurance plan for you and your family. And always have some money backup if you need to take care of your children's education. If you can have some backup in these three aspects, I think then you are a happy man or a woman in midlife. If you think that money is not everything in life, I think you seriously need to reconsider that. Because if you haven't earned enough to secure these three, I think you definitely need to work hard, not just in the gym, but even at your work. Fine. So on that note, the aims of this lecture, which generally is told before the lecture, but I always love to say this after my lecture, it definitely would help you in managing your patients who are in midlife. Obviously, majority of our patients are actually in midlife when they come to you. On a personal front, if you are more than 65, if any of you are more than 65, I would say congratulations, because you've actually gone through a very, very tough phase without, in fact, knowing about it, and have come out well. Correct, no? Sometimes they say ignorance is bliss. People never talked about midlife earlier, and now there is a committee and there is Shaijas who's keeping on talking about this. Sometimes it's good not to know about this, isn't it? Because when you get to know about this, then you get to the intricacies of how to manage this. So if you're already more than 65, I would say congratulations. I have a whole lot of respect to how you have tided over that really, really tough phase. If you are in midlife, I think it's really time to introspect. India's one country which has not talked much about it. In India, people still feel that when I say midlife, people feel it's menopause. And I say midlife is much, much, much more than menopause. And it's not just about a woman at all. It's definitely about a man. And if you look at the story about midlife crisis, the first diagnosis of midlife crisis happened in a man, not in a woman. Fine. And if you are in your 20s, I would say that's the best time to listen to these lectures, because then you can totally plan your midlife. Before you reach 35, I think you have secured enough resources and you're totally planned out your midlife so very well. And you're very, very, very unlikely to get into a phase of crisis. So on that note, I would end with this quote. Life begins at 40 is a fantastic motivational statement. But remember the reality, so do fallen arches, rheumatism, faulty eyesight, and a tendency to tell a story to the same person 3 or 4 times. And if people are reminding you that you just told the story yesterday when you met me, then I would say welcome to midlife. On that note, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shajas. It was an absolute eye-opener. I'm so happy we chose you for this topic. You have done complete justice to this topic. And I'm sure when I saw your CV, it was so inspiring because you are a motivational speaker, you are a seasoned badminton player, actor, dancer, and whatnot. I know you have a lot of feathers to your cap, and that keeps you going all the time without any worry about the crisis which we are all talking about. Thank you so much. It was an absolutely marvelous presentation, and from the team OGSSI and from the entire delegate panel, it was really nice because I'm also a fitness enthusiast, but I never thought so much about it because I always felt, we understand our own metabolism and work on it. But when it comes to middle age spread, when you were talking about the age, definitely there is a weight gain, and we actually have to tailor make our own workouts so that we don't fall into the category of overdoing and get things. I belong to Chennai runners, and when I hear to these marathon runners getting stuck with a lot of health issues, there are a lot of talk in the group about that. And I think all of us have to understand our own metabolism and our own limits, not overdo things just for the sake of overdoing it. Thank you so much. I now over to Dr. Indra, Dr. Jairani ma'am, and Dr. Shanti to give your viewpoints about the
That's really amazing, and it was really a wonderful deliberation you made. And it's really a very good talk, which you talk from your heart. I could see the emotions in it, how you express yourself. I think it's good thing that you have gone through so many things to enjoy it rather. And it is really good that you express the good emotions, and I think everybody likes that way you talk. And it's so nice, very good, and you are the right person, good person for the committee chairperson. And that's why we really appreciate your energetic work in the Midlife Committee. Thank you, Shajas, for being with us and accepting our invite and talking so wonderfully on behalf of our team, OGSSI. I thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Indra ma'am.
Actually, that's a very, very big eye opener for me, I have to say. And a lot of things I was doing wrong in educating the patient and for me also. It's a real eye opener, and probably we will start refining ourselves to the new concepts. So thank you very much.
So Shajas, I just want to add to your presentation. You said about your diet and exercise. You must include the sleep pattern also in your presentation to complete it to prevent the obesity. Because that is the one thing that we have to look at a lot of things after the technology of the internet. Because we sleep less. That also one forerunner for the obesity. So I think you must include that and make it still more complete in your talk.
True, very true. And there's a new terminology we are talking these days, and I think I'm really glad that you brought out that point. There's a terminology that we're talking about these days. It's called sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
Sleep hygiene. it's a wonderful terminology, because I think we are all used to this menstrual hygiene thing, isn't it? Because we've always been talking about that. It's so personal to us, isn't it, as gynecologists as well as a woman in the country. So they're talking about sleep hygiene, and it's about how to maintain the place where you sleep. We always used to think about what is the importance of having a good lighting in a bedroom, isn't it? Now, there are a whole lot of researches going on how a lighting system, the comfort that you get on the bed that you use, the pillow covers, the feel of the bed sheet that you have, whether there is any possibility of a dust getting deposited in any of those curtains or anything in your room, whether there are any, stimulatory food or a drink that you're taking before sleep, how many hours before which you can actually switch off your smartphone and keep it aside. Mean to say, the habits, the surroundings, the thought process, and probably some people love darkness in the bedroom. So how we can ensure that is there to ensure that you have some undisturbed sleep. And only when these things are taken care, your attitude, your precautions that you take before you going to sleep, and the surroundings, how you maintain that, would actually decide on how well you're waking up. So if you're actually waking up tired, that means you're not taking care of these things. You don't have something called sleep hygiene. And I think we should start talking about that in much more detail. I think it's an entire lecture altogether on sleep hygiene, I would say, because there is a whole lot of work that have happened. And I'm glad that you brought out that point so that I could add on a little bit more on that. Thank you.
Probably we can have another talk from you on the same topics. We always look forward to listen to your talk.
Which alters the obesity, and the metabolism also gets jeopardized because of your circadian rhythm getting altered, your melatonin, your metabolism, everything plays a role in this obesity, especially in the midlife. That also has to be, talked a lot.
True.
Thank you so much. Thank you, chairpersons. Thank you, speakers. It's been an amazing webinar and really an eye-opener for all of us. And I think it's important for us to actually talk to the patient on holistic attitude, because we just can't talk only medical aspects. And they come to us with a lot of problems. And as a doctor, I think it's nice to see the patient from head to foot and sort out their problems in these aspects also, because a lot of people understand that they are doing so much of work at home, so they don't want to they don't want to spend separate time on a workout. But I know how much more than these exercises give you a lot of mental strength than physical strength, I believe, because people who are into sports, who are actually doing some exercises, it actually makes them mentally very strong, apart from making them physically very strong. So we have to make them understand that physical strength and mental strength are complementary to each other, and they cannot separate both of them, and they have to make sure that they have both of them in equal proportions, and so that if one is at a problem, the other can actually help them out. Thank you so much, Dr. Shaijas and Dr. Shashireka and Vasanthi ma'am, for this entire webinar. Now, I request Dr. Deepa, one of our members of the co-chairperson of the Midlife Committee of OGSSI, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Karpagam. It was a wonderful evening, well spent. I'm just hearing Saiju's talk second time, and it is still motivating me. I'm sure that helps those who attended. At the outset, I thank Jairani Madam for giving us the opportunity to host this webinar. And thank you, Karpagam. And thanks our chairpersons, Dr. Shanti and Dr. Indra, and our speakers, Dr. Sasi, getting us through the midlife crisis, and Dr. Saijus for the weight gain, how to go about exercises. Yes, I don't want to. It was really, really good, Saijus. And then second, Dr. Vasanta, is it Dr. Vasanta? No.
Vasanthi ma'am, yeah.
Madam. Vasanthi madam, and her talk on mental health, how to take care of your mental health during the midlife, as well as it starts from young ages. It's really good. Thank you, Sakiti and the Shield for giving us the platform. And they are supporting Shield Healthcare for supporting us for a long webinars. Thank you so much. Thanks, Karpagam. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. We'll come up with different top topics because I know sleep is also very, very important. And we also go through a lot of phases where we also want to include science and spirituality in the coming topics. I know we'll be including our medical gynecological aspects also, which we face in the midlife crisis, but we just want to have some overview of other things as well, about which we not know much. Thank you so much for your patient listening and excellent. We really enjoyed this webinar thoroughly. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye.